Cool. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Nottingham Festival of Science and Curiosity 2021. Welcome back if you've been here to our previous Ask a Scientist events, or if it's your first time, then welcome. We're here to spark that curiosity of yours, and you'll get the chance to ask lots of questions. A special warm welcome to students tuning in from Gedling schools as part of their Build Your Future Week. Just before I ask the panel to introduce themselves, a reminder of how the sessions of Ask Student works. If you're viewing from YouTube, you can comment through the comment section, or you can send an email to info@notsfosac.co.uk. For our fourth Ask a Scientist Q&A, we're joined by PhD students from the University of Nottingham's Biodiscovery Institute. We'll be finding out what they're researching and how it contributes to medical developments, what they do day to day, what they studied at school, and what they like best about doing a PhD. I remind you to comment or send in your questions because we've got plenty of opportunities to be asking them. So first, Mireia Sueca, can you introduce yourself, please?
Yeah. So hello everyone, thank you for inviting us today. I'm Mireia. I'm now a PhD student at the University of Nottingham, but I'm as a background a biochemist, a molecular biologist, and I graduated in Spain.
Thanks, Mireia. And Louisa Taylor?
Yes, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for having us here today. My name's Louisa. I'm a final year PhD student from the Biodiscovery Institute at the University of Nottingham. And my PhD is also with molecular biology and biochemistry. And yeah, I did my undergraduate degrees in Nottingham as well.
Thank you, Louisa. Eleonora Comio?
Hi, everyone. I'm really excited to be here today. So I'm Eleonora, and I'm also a last year PhD student at the Biodiscovery Institute, and I'm studying medicinal chemistry and molecular pharmacology, and I graduated in Italy at the University of Bologna.
Thank you, Eleonora. And Ilona Sika.
Good morning, everyone. It is an honor to be here. So myself, yes, I'm a PhD student from University of Nottingham. And my areas which I study and the most passionate about is immunology and material science. I graduated in UK, even you could maybe hear my accent, I'm actually from Lithuania, but I got my undergraduate degree in Birmingham and then master's and PhD here in Nottingham.
Thank you, Ilona. So I just remind people to ask their questions, send them in. I'll be keeping an eye on them. The format today, I'm going to be going around each of our speakers and they're going to be giving a talk about themselves, what they study, how they came to do it, and what they look for the future. And then we'll come to the end for those questions. So keep sending them in. So Mireia, if you'd like to start your talk.
Yeah, sure. So hi everyone again. So as you can tell, I'm Spanish. I'm an international student, and I did my undergrad in biochemist and molecular biologist. I did it back to Spain, and then I did my master's as well in Spain. It was a biomedicine master's. And during the end of my undergrad, I wanted a change, and I've decided that I wanted to take the experience to go abroad. And that's the reason why I'm here now in UK. So I was approaching the end of my undergrad. I needed to do my project. So I decided that why not a change? And I kind of come here in UK. I can learn the language as well, and I can do a bit of research here. So during the end of my undergrad, I've already knew I wanted to do something related with cancer. And actually, that's what I'm doing right now with my PhD. I'll be talking about it later on. So I've decided that I wanted to start focusing myself in cancer research. So I kind of look for options in UK. I did look at different labs that I might be interested in, what they're doing, which is the type of research that they're doing. And as easy as I've wrote an email, I've contacted a professor and I said, like, I'm Mireia, I'm a student biochemist and molecular biologist student, and I'll be really happy to come and do my project into your lab. And he was happy to take me. He said that you're welcome to come, and that's how my journey started. So I came here to UK. I did my undergrad project in cancer research. I was really, really passionate about it. We ended up publishing a paper as well, so that was really great. I've enjoyed my project so much. And then I decided that I was going to go back to Spain just for a little break to do my master's. At that point, I knew I wanted to do a PhD, and a PhD is just basically just to do research, and you're a student, but you also kind of have a job. So I went back to Spain. I did my master's at the University of Barcelona. And at the end of my master's, I got in touch with the same professor and I say, I've finished my master's. I want to come here to do my project. And if I'm allowed, I can carry on doing a PhD. So he was really happy to take me. He said, like, you're more than welcome to come. And I came again. So I did my master's degree, again, in cancer research, really passionate. And when I finished my master's, I wasn't sure whether I had to continue in research, because research is something really passionate, but at the same time, you have to put lots of effort. I decided I was going to go ahead. I wrote my own project. I've submitted to the University of Nottingham. And one of the great things that the University of Nottingham has is that they really support all the students. So they've accepted my project. I got the funding, and I've started my PhD. So I'm now a third-year PhD student at the Biodiscovery Institute. We've just moved now into this amazing new building where it's like amazing research going on. Now we're doing even like COVID-19 research, but my PhD is about cancer research. So just to talk about a bit about my PhD. So basically, I'm really passionate about cancer research from personal experiences, but also because I find it fascinating. I think it's a disease that is affecting most of the families, all the families. And I think research is like the future to treat it. So my PhD basically is to understand how cancer cells communicate with the cancer, with the cells that are surrounding the cancer cells. So we have like the little tumor, and then we have all the cells that are surrounding, which we call tumor microenvironment. And I just want to understand how they communicate to each other, whether they're there because they're helping the cancer cells to progress, whether they're making the disease worse. And in our lab, to do this, we're trying to develop 3D models. I know that sounds really exciting. So we just want to work really close to the patient, and we were representing all this disease in vitro. So we're trying to grow these 3D models, and we put the cancer cells, we kind of generate the tumor, and then we do different assays just to understand how they talk to each other. So yeah, that's my journey. That's how I've become a PhD student, and I'll be happy to ask any questions, to answer any questions if you have.
Thank you, Mireia. That's really interesting. The journey you've been on is fascinating, and I think to young students it's inspiring. I'm sure there'll be some questions, but I'm intrigued to see what lays ahead for the future. So I'm going to come to Louisa now. If you'd be able to give your talk.
Yeah, sure. So I'll first talk a bit about my research and what I'm studying at the moment, and then I'll explain how I kind of ended up getting into this particular research area. So yeah, as was already said, my name's Louisa, and my research is focused actually on studying just one very small protein called YB1. And it's a protein that's really important for our cells to function normally. It's involved in our cells making proteins and how they proliferate, which is how they kind of divide and how they grow. But it's also really highly expressed in cancers, and in particular, the cancer that I'm interested in, which is brain cancer. So I really want to find out why brain cancer cells express this protein so highly and how it might be promoting tumour progression, and specifically an area that I'm really interested in, which is drug resistance. And this is how cancer cells can start to become resistant and tolerate the chemotherapy and the treatments that we treat them with. So kind of the overall aim of this research is really to kind of improve treatment strategies and identify new targets with the hope that we can start to improve overall survival and the quality of life of patients with brain tumours today. So getting into this, how did I get into science? Really by accident, because I didn't want to be a scientist. I really wanted to be a vet when I was younger, and I wanted to be a vet from about the age of probably like 3 or 4 years old. I had my heart completely set on veterinary science. So I did all the work experience. I was going to kind of farms. I worked in kennels, stables. I worked at different vet centres, and it was all I wanted to do. And then unfortunately I didn't get into vet school, which I think is the story for a lot of people who want to be vets. So I kind of panicked. I didn't know what I was going to do. I felt like I kind of failed a bit, but I managed to get a space that year on a biochemistry and chemistry course at the University of Nottingham. And I really didn't know what to expect. I didn't always really love chemistry when I was doing my lessons at school. So I was a bit kind of apprehensive going into the course. But as soon as I got there and I got to the university, I absolutely loved it. I really loved the lectures. And I think one thing I was particularly interested in from really early on was looking at cancer and cancer biology. I think just because it affects so many people, it's affected my family, it was something that I was really interested in kind of learning more about. I really liked learning how kind of cancers could spread around the body, and I thought that would be a really interesting area to try and research. So my first kind of research project I did was during my undergraduate degree, and I was looking at cancer cell invasion, but not in cells like we sometimes use. I was actually researching all of this in fruit flies. So we call fruit flies in science Drosophila, and they are a kind of a model organism, which I know seems strange because flies do not seem very similar to humans, but we can actually model a huge amount of kind of diseases in flies. So things like cancer, also neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's disease. A lot of the kind of disease-related genes in humans are actually quite similar in flies, so that's why we use them. So using these tiny, tiny little fruit flies, I started looking at things that might be involved in invasion in cancer. And I just loved research. I loved being in the lab. I found it just so fulfilling and kind of so satisfying. So from then on, I really thought, okay, no, I do like research. I want to stay in research. So I then did a research master's. So this is kind of 12 months in a lab, and at the end of it, you write kind of thesis. And I did this in the same fly lab, and I did lots of really cool things in this master's. So I would dissect the flies under the microscope and do lots of experiments using the gut of flies, which sounds a bit disgusting. And you can imagine it's quite fiddly because fruit flies are about that big. So you had to do everything under a microscope with very, very sharp and tweezers. But that was really, really interesting, and just learnt more and more about kind of cancer modelling and just being in a lab in general. So from that kind of year onwards, I kind of knew I wanted to do a PhD, and I knew I wanted to stay in this kind of research area. And unfortunately, as I found with trying to get into vet school, it was quite difficult to get a PhD. I applied for 12 PhDs and got 12 rejections. So one thing I think science has told me is to be very resilient and be quite good at coping when things don't always go quite to plan. But in the end, I did get a PhD in Nottingham. And yes, I chose a PhD that was working in a brain tumour research lab. So I did a rotation in the lab, and I absolutely loved it. I thought the work they were doing was so inspiring and really, really important. And I think that's something that is super important for me, is to try and pick a research area or just a job in general that I find inspiring, because being a scientist in kind of academia and in kind of the science world is as Maria is saying, it's really kind of long hours. It's really tough. And I needed something that was going to give me that drive to get out of bed, that drive to stay late sometimes and go in at weekends occasionally. And yes, I really found that kind of drive studying brain tumour research. So yes, that's what I'm doing at the moment, and I absolutely love it. So yeah, I'd love to answer any questions that you might have later. Thank you.
Thank you, Louisa. That was really inspiring. Just to hear about you're not so much love for chemistry, and then you went on to university and actually enjoyed it. It's really interesting, and just shows that there's lots of different aspects to a subject, and you can enjoy different parts of it. It's really great. There's some great questions coming in, but we're going to go to our next speaker, and at the end we'll answer some of them. So Eleonora, if you'd like to go next, please.
Hi everyone. So yeah, I'm Eleonora, and so I have a similar path so I'm Italian, as you might hear from my accent, and I did my undergrad at the University of Bologna, studying chemistry and pharmaceutical technologies. Actually, my first intention wasn't exactly to study that field, but to become a vet, as Louise has just said. But unfortunately, didn't get to the vet school. However, a subject that I really enjoyed was chemistry, and I wanted to study chemistry that could help to improve the health of humankind. And so that's why I went to the chemistry and pharmaceutical technology. And at the end of my undergrad, I wasn't really sure I wanted to pursue research. I was more like keen to continue in industry. However, my partner had to come over to the UK to work. And then as I needed to find a job, I also applied for an Erasmus Plus for traineeship scheme. That is a really great program and allows you to carry out research or internship in a research institution or in industry abroad if you are interested. So I took that as an opportunity to allow me to be known about like labs or to become familiar with the country as well, and potentially from that on to find a job in the future. So I got the position and I looked for potential places where I could do this internship. And I found my current supervisor lab. I was really, really interested in the research they were doing. So essentially, they were synthesizing these fluorescent probes that are molecules that have a fluorescent dye, so a molecule that fluoresces when you excite it with a laser. It's a kind of glow stick, if you want to think about it, that it fluoresces in the dark. And I find it really fascinating because they were applying these tools to study proteins. And then I emailed him, and I was really surprised that he was really happy to having me in the lab and do this experience. And so when I came here, I don't know, I really fall in love with research, with how it was like being in the lab every day. Every day was different because there were different problems to solve, and so from that on, I was interested really in continue that kind of journey, and so then I stayed for my PhD, and now what I'm doing is that I'm continuing synthesizing these fluorescent probes. So I'm applying my chemistry knowledge to making this molecule that they can fluoresce. And so you can definitely use different dyes of different colors, like red, green, and then you can apply this and you can combine with more advanced microscope, and you can look at different aspects of biology. And in my specific case, I'm interested in studying G protein couple receptors. Those proteins are expressed on the surface of the cells, and they're involved in different aspects of regulating cardiac function, as well as cancer progression, multiple aspects of human physiology. And so the fact that you can use those tools to study those proteins is really useful, because you can definitely look at those proteins in living cells and in a natural environment. And essentially what you can understand from these is that you can definitely ask fundamental questions like how these proteins work, and so how they function, either when they are happy, so in a health state, or when they are unhappy, like in a disease state. And then from then on, you can use this knowledge and then design and make better medicine that can treat several diseases. So essentially what my research aimed to do is to help to answer the question of fundamental science, and then eventually help to develop medicine in the future that can treat a disease in a more efficient way. And I think what really is exciting from this aspect is that somehow we are actually targeting those diseases from the early stage. So, and also, a very exciting point of view, as I said before, I'm a chemist as a background. I didn't really have a huge experience in pharmacology, but I learned how to do basic experiment in that as well. So I was able to apply this knowledge and then go in the lab. And what is really exciting is that when you actually synthesize those molecules, they're really cool because they are colorful, right? And then you apply them and you add in your cells, and then you use this advanced microscope, and then you see everything really in the dark that is red or blue, and you see that it works eventually. And it's really exciting, and it gives you that push to keep going, and you look that they can be really useful. Another aspect I like by being a PhD student, and I think that is the same in every field of research, is that in the lab there are people coming from different background and nationality. And so despite being able to, be involved in only your research, that is great and is really like exciting, but you're also able to be involved in other people's research and maybe help them in solving problems. And you can also learn from them based on their personal experience. And also you get to know some aspect of cultural background that otherwise you wouldn't be able of. And that's what makes this university environment so great, because it's the diversity that is around and is thriving. And that is also pushing the development of, and put in place and develop great idea how to treat important disease that are affecting the human health. So that's what I like most about my job.
Thank you, Eleonora. I love that the cultural influence you can get from your job, and I think we'll be touching on more of your favourite aspects with all of you, if that's okay. So to our last speaker, we're going to go to Ilona.
Hi everyone again. So my name is Ilona, and my journey to science was a little bit kind of not a nice straight line. It was a little bit like curvy, I could say. So I would just go actually, why even end up in science, and especially choosing this specific subject, immunology, as my strongest passion about it. So I came to England when I was 14, and I couldn't speak in English at all. So it was a little bit challenging as a school student, to integrate with the people and absolutely new culture as well. But always as a kid, I enjoyed the facts and documentaries. I always passionate how the life is working around us. But my head was aiming to become a painter, actress, because I did enjoy more drama and arts lessons. Until one day when I finished year 9 and I came back to year 10, I've been awarded a book for the best outstanding science student. And that kind of really bit shocked me, because I had those life science lessons and I did enjoy them, and I tried to my best to communicate with the teacher to answer those questions. So it showed me the people did notice my brain processing. So it showed me as well that I can capable of understanding and working with science. Because before I thought if you just join to medical schools or science world or world, you have to come from the strong financial background, or your uncle or auntie needs to be there just to get yourself into this field. So that was initial point for me to have to say, declare myself, what, I really do enjoy science, and especially biology, so I'm going to go into this field as my future career. And when I proceeded to college, I started to learn more in depth about the human systems. So I found this very old book, about microbiology, which is bacteria, viruses, and immunology system. And that just really kind of blew my mind away, what kind of complex but such a very advanced defense system we have in our body. So this all really triggered me to really seek and understand more about the immune system. So this is where then I proceeded to look for the undergraduate degree, the bachelor's degree, and I joined Aston University in Birmingham, and that what I studied was immunology, but with microbiology as well. So this was just mainly to see how our immune system works around, and especially in infections caused by bacteria, parasites, and viruses. But when like I'm about to finish the my first degree, I really started to like listen and read papers about how the immune system is being recognized to be important on tackling cancer. And especially like I seen at this BBC News, you know, the big news, you know, like, you know, instead of like, you know, using chemotherapy or radiotherapy, which is like completely like a chemical dependent or radiation dependent treatments to treat cancer in people, they were talking about immunotherapy, where you actually make your own defense system to target the cancer cells. So this is what really made me think and read more papers about it. And I thought like, you know, I really want to now shift my little bit interest, still stay committed to immunology, but now explore the cancer world. So this is where I completed my master's degree in the University of Nottingham. And whilst doing this degree as well, I did this project, which actually as well involved the about immune system, but it was mainly like about now forming little plastic particles, like like I could call it plastic balls, but which had the chemicals inside them. And the whole idea was, if in future, like, you know, could be like injected into patient, and those little balls would release the chemicals which actually attract our immune system cells into a specific body part, which were not good at, like, you know, tackling the cancer cells itself. But the key thing, you know, pull those bad cells away from the cancer and allow the good ones to come back there. So even just like coming to this research area, which is involved not the cancer background immune system, but also material science, where I have the opportunity to form those little balls and then put their chemicals in it. That really like also opened my mind again, you know, like I'm really interested about this field now, and I would love to like pursue it more. So this is where I found this PhD, which is still in University of Nottingham, looking on creating a 3D culture system. So what is my like now work involves is about isolating T cells. So I don't know if you've heard it, but I think on the news has been talked quite enough, especially in regards to COVID-19 situation. But having human T cells and put them in a gel, a specific gel which is made from like a friendly proteins. But the key thing is to improve science, because like now at the moment we as a scientist use a culture system. So where we put the cells, once we extract them from the animal or human body, we put them in a media and a plastic container, which is very unrealistic. And of course, we are not working like a plastic containers with the liquid. We are kind of like a 3D culture system. You know, we have like the tissue areas with the specific architecture. Some components are present there. So this is where I'm actually stepping in with the gel to recreate a tissue model and put the T cells in it. And then my study is actually see how T cells are behaving realistically compared to the human body. So where we will take it, I hope, like, you know, people will start to like reconsider shifting the or changing the research method. So instead of like, you know, analyzing the animal models like mouse, chimpanzees, etc., they could just like, you know, design some experiments with the gel as cells in it and give us a realistic cell environment. But of course, we can't avoid, you know, the animal models in future, because, you know, they still are very valuable to answer more complex questions. But as like in the whole like journey in a nutshell, like, you know, I'm still very passionate about the immunology and always try to stick with it. Not try, actually, I do stick to it, you know. But I like to really like explore other like, you know, science backgrounds, and this is where I was like really shifting from microbiology, cancer, now to the material science as well. And the key thing, like being as a researcher, like, you know, working in PhD, I really do enjoy it, because I do feel like a little bit like a Sherlock Holmes. I mean, I'm trying to see what's happening there, and then you just like think, what is going on here? You know, like, you know, why the cells behave this way? What do I need to give them to do that? Or why they behave something so like, you know, in a different way, and I haven't seen it. You know, it's always thinking process, but it's like a puzzle which I try to unpuzzle it. And the key thing, this is no waste of time, because what I'm working on is going to contribute to the whole world knowledge. So I really like to, be part of, be in the research, just because I'm contributing to something big as well. So like, you know, all my efforts and career aspect, you know, I really like, you know, going to leave something behind, and just like, you know, push the human knowledge. So this is just why I'm still stay committed to science, immunology, and as a researcher as well. So that's it.
Thank you, Elena. That's great. I could talk to you all day, but we have got plenty of questions to get through. I would like to go with Michelle Woodward's question, who asked, why do cancer treatments not work for everyone, and what makes it return if it does in later life? Is there anyone particularly who would like to answer, or shall I come round?
I can start us off with that one, if that would be
great.
good.
Thank you, Louisa.
So I think one thing that I think is maybe a bit of a misconception is we talk about different types of cancer. So we talk about there being like a breast cancer and a brain cancer and a bladder cancer. But what we kind of don't think about is that humans are so genetically different. Like there are differences between all of us. So although we might have a set amount of cancers, they all vary slightly differently person to person, which is why some treatments don't work. And what we're starting to do now as scientists is we're starting to look more about the differences that we all have at a kind of gene and a protein level and how we can adapt treatment. So it's more, I don't know if anyone's heard the term like personalized treatment, and it's more personalized. And that is going to be where treatment starts to go, is that we can like subtype cancers into more niche categories with different kind of molecular changes, and then we can design treatments specifically for patients with those slight molecular changes. So the reason why treatments don't always work for everyone is a lot of the treatments that we have historically used are quite general, like chemotherapy, but it will start with these kind of personalized treatments and molecularly targeted therapies. We can really start making treatment more personalized to the person, and that's going to be, I think, where cancer treatment goes.
Excellent. Thank you, Louisa. And we've got another technical question who is asking from Jason, who asked, how does cancer actually kill? So if that's sort of more of a general question that one of you might be able to answer, don't go too far into it, but if you could just sort of introduce how cancer actually kills in the body. Yeah, Ilona, yes, please.
I'll give a shot to answer it. So cancer cells is actually your cells, but they are abnormal cells. They're growing out of control. And what happens is when you have a nice healthy tissue, which makes your muscles or like, heart or like a nervous system, they all work like nice together, like, all behaving. They don't overgrow each other or try to like, push their functions away. But when the cancer cells like start to occur, like when it happens, is overgrowing in your normal tissue. So in other words, makes that organ, to really like be more occupied by the cancer cells, which don't know how to work together. So the key thing, this makes your like, the tissue or the organ try to stop the normal function as well. So, for example, like in your liver, once you have like this nice, beautiful organ, doing many different types of functions, but when you have the cancer cells occupying the space and really like outnumbering the normal cells, then your liver like doesn't really behave as it's supposed to do, because it has cancer cells, the abnormal cells, which occupy the whole space of it. And then this is like why cancer kills you, because cancer cells can emigrate like, through your body as well, and then start to really like, attack other live tissues, which also like start to like shut down their normal function as well.
Great, thank you, Ilona. So coming to more about your satisfaction and your actual research, Maria, what is your favourite aspect of your research, and what is the coolest thing about your work of research? We've got that from Carly.
Yeah, so I would start saying that one of the things that I love the most is the fact that I'm indirectly helping humans. So although my research is like a tiny research within the whole community, I kind of work towards treating cancer, if we put it in that way. I know that that's big words, and I mean, that's the end of all the PhD students working in cancer research. We want to treat cancer, but by working with the feeling that I'm helping humans, and maybe one day my contribution will help somebody to be cured for cancer, I think that's one of the most exciting things for my PhD. But I would say as well that one of the things that I really like about my PhD and being a PhD student in general is that how different your day is one day to another. So it's never the same. So you one day can plan your experiments. You can spend all day into the lab making experiments, which are completely different from the experiments that you're going to do the day after. Then 1 week a day, you have meetings with other people to share your research. So it's kind of every day is different. And I think it's really exciting the fact that your life is never like monotone, it's always changing one to another. And then I would finally say as well that one of the most important things as well is that in research there's lots of cultural like mixtures. So it's really great because you always have the opportunity to learn about other cultures and they learn about your culture. So I think that's really great, and that's what I love the most about being a PhD student and my research.
Thank you, Maria. And I know you touched upon cultural diversity as well, Eleonora, but can you sort of answer the same question and where you get that satisfaction from, sort of a certain day that you might really enjoy or something like that?
Yeah, it's I link to what Mirella just said. So obviously the fact that every day in the lab is completely different, it keeps you the drive, because at some point, I guess every job, it becomes a bit part of a routine, and sometimes it is ours as well. But the fact that every day maybe you can face different challenges, problem, and then you try to understand what's going on, and you if you can't, you talk with other people. So that's the good thing. Sometimes maybe a PhD can feel a bit as an island, so that you are only the citizen of that island. But at the same time, you know that you can rely on more experienced people, such as your supervisor, or simply like your other PhD students, even someone that doesn't necessarily work in your field. Because the great thing is, I think, is also that I link to the diversity, is that you can actually face problem, look at problem from a different perspective, and that's what I think we need to look at. And having a more diverse environment definitely helps to try to understand and to address the challenges that we are facing, because it's becoming pretty clear that in order to treat human disease in general, they're so complicated that we need people from different cultural background and different simply like expertise as well. So it's really important. And also, I don't know, I think it just makes you a better person, because you can just appreciate not just the expertise of the individual, but the different culture. So you understand more, and it's just really exciting, because they can just tell you about their routine. They can tell you about everything. So it's just really great.
Thank you, Eleonora. Now we've got another technical question asking, have you ever researched an animal like whales because they're immune to cancers? Ilona, I don't know if you can touch upon that for me.
Sorry, no, like I didn't have the chance to study the whale yet. I really like because I only like concentrate on a human, so like I only like come close to the human blood samples or like tissues. So I think it would be more like a marine biologist, aspect of area to study like the immune system, because you have to bear in mind, like I know we all share the same system, like we all have nervous and cardio and immune system, but they're all a little bit different to humans and whales, So yeah, it's more marine biologist could answer you this question. Sorry.
We need a marine biologist. So coming to you, Louisa, what happens when you do find a cure for something? Or if you haven't, or what would you expect to happen?
So I don't think it's ever, unfortunately, quite as simple as like just finding a cure. I think one thing that I've really learned through doing science is that everything goes wrong all the time. Like you just think, like you plan an experiment, you think you planned it really well, you kind of have a hypothesis on what you're hoping is going to happen at the end of that experiment, and it never works out like you have planned. So even though you might think, oh yeah, I'm going to find out this from this series of experiments, and then that could identify a possible target, and then I could find like a drug that could target that, and then it could, and you think it might be quite simple and linear. It's really not like that at all. But I think that's also one of the lovely things about science, is when something does work and you do find out something, even if it's something really small, it's that kind of thrill and excitement that you get, that you found something kind of quite interesting. And that's really is kind of the best feeling. And it's definitely why I kind of love science, is that even though sometimes it feels a bit like constantly up and down, when you do find something and make a small finding, it's just the best feeling.
Thank you, Lisa. So more to the general types of questions. What would you say to students about keeping their options open? And we'll come round to everyone. So Mireia, if you'd like to start. So yeah, what would you say to students who are interested in the same sort of field and keeping their options open and about what to go into essentially?
Yeah, so for example, like in my case, as I said before, I always wanted to do something related with cancer research. So, and I know that now the University of Nottingham is offering a course just in cancer research. So, I would say that if you already know from the beginning that you want to focus yourself in cancer research, I think it's a good option to look for courses that are related to this. But if you don't want to kind of focus yourself from the really beginning, I think you can still start as a wide background. So for example, I'm coming from biochemistry and molecular biology. So I did physics at my undergrad, which I've never used anymore now, for example, in my PhD. And then when I finished my undergrad, then I knew I had to focus a bit more. That's when I went to biomedicine, and the biomedicine specialized in cancer research. So if they already know what they want to do as a career, I think looking for courses that are specific for that is a good option. But you can still focus by just coming from a background like biochemistry and molecular biologist, because now my PhD is basically focused in cancer research. And at the beginning of my undergrad, I did lots of other things that now I'm not doing for my PhD. So there's different routes that you can take, but all of them are right, yeah.
Fab, thank you, Mireia. And to you, Eleonora, similar sort of question. What would you say to students about keeping their options open, or to you as a younger self, back to your past self?
Yeah, well, I think sometimes you really don't know. At least for me, I didn't have my future already mapped up, in terms that I didn't know I wanted to become a PhD student working in medicinal chemistry. It just happened, and it's like I found something I like. And then I just followed it. Something that, as Luisa was saying before, that helps you to being excited to wake up at 6 a.m. or 5 a.m. because you want to start an experiment. That is important. But at the same time, I think is that it just happens, you don't find the right path, and it's fair enough also to change it. I heard many from other PhD students, for example, that they study computer science, and then they just went doing a PhD in medicinal chemistry without having a really huge experience in chemistry itself, apart from college, which is fair enough, because in the end you start a new path, and on the first year you can just learn the basics that you need, and you can focus on that. So I think there are really no boundaries right now, and what actually I'm learning is that you learn multiple skills in your PhD. You're not just focused in one simple task, even though maybe your PhD is more focused on a subject. But in the end, you start and you learn new technique that involves different skills. And in the future, I think everything will help you in your future job, either if you want to pursue a career in academia, or even if you want to pursue a career in industry, because you learn how to approach problems from different perspectives.
Thank you, Eleonora. And to Ilona, so I was really interested to know if there's any exciting developments you've been a part of, or that you can share with us, or in the future that you are looking to be a part of as well.
Developments. Okay, so yes, I will push on science and research, which is my main, it's more like a career side of it. But on a personal side as well, I actually like to still interact with people. I like to attend events. I like to talk, I like to debate. So really trying to push more my personal own skills as well. So really just have to say be active as well, try to join the societies, be part of the teams or collaborate in some work, because the key thing is it's not just you always go out and giving try to make the best work out of it, but the key thing you develop as a human as well. Because even myself, I joined these societies, and on a personal development level, it helps me to improve my confidence. It helps me to really speak out for myself, share my opinion. Really don't worry about what other people will think, And also, like, you know, as we really brushed at this many times, diversity, it's really like also helps you to learn people, you know, like who like, you know, what aspects you can discuss it, and or what is that person is like do enjoy to talk about. So just like this part of development, which I really like, you know, admire it, and also I feel gratitude to it. I will keep pushing on as well. So I'm just like, I do have my science commitment, but also on the personal development, I really like will continue in the future to be involved in various types of events, because I love people and I love interact with them, and also it makes me a better person.
Thank you, Ilona. And to you, Louisa, we've got a minute or so left, but I was really interested to know about your resilience and the rejection you have for your PhDs. But here you are today, and you're doing a PhD. How do you maintain that drive and that want to actually do what you're doing now?
I think looking back, I think I would have made a really bad vet. I don't know, like, so I think you have to take failures. I actually heard a really good quote, and it's like, instead of seeing failures as something bad, like use it as like kind of like data acquisition. So yes, I didn't get to become a vet, and I didn't get the first PhD I applied to, but I think it all led to me becoming and getting into the area that I'm really passionate about. And it meant that I maybe had to spend a bit longer making decisions and really think hard and apply to more and more PhDs. But in doing that, I started to identify the areas that I find the most interesting. So I think it just really just shows that sometimes what you think you want to do when you're really young isn't actually what you're going to be best at when you're older. And I do think that's quite an important point, especially for kind of the secondary school pupils who might be tuning in today, is that I think it's really easy to feel like when you're picking GCSEs and A levels, you'll kind of have to choose what you're going to do for the rest of your life. But I think, as we've touched on, things change constantly, and whatever you pick, as long as you're interested in it, I'm sure it will serve you well, and you'll pick up transferable skills that will allow you to move on to the next stage. So I think, yeah, you've got to take the positives from things that don't quite work out and trust that it will all be leading you in the right direction, and you'll learn a lot from them.
Thank you, Louisa. I think that's a great message to end on. Do what you enjoy and you love, and it'll work out. And in the end, you'll do what you enjoy. So thank you to Mireia, Louisa, Eleonora and Ilona for your speaks and talks today. And I'd like to thank the audience for participating, sending in your questions. It's been a great talk and event today. And we'll see you tomorrow if you're coming back for Ask a Scientist at the same time, same day. And we'll see you soon. Thank you. Bye.